7 hacks for online teaching. Hack 5, get the flow right. This is about transition. You know, many times in lessons, our focus, energy, and attention goes into the lesson itself or the main content of the lesson. When it comes to online teaching, this is important in the physical classroom, but it is of amplified importance in the online classroom. Not only do we need to focus on the lesson itself, we need to focus on how we're going to get from one component of the lesson to another, or from one part of the teaching content to another. This idea of flow and transition is crucial in the online classroom. In a physical classroom, sometimes it's easy to manage this kind of thing. We can manage the state and the energy of our students because we can see what's going on. We can look around our classroom and go, you know what? I'm not teaching so well right now, or the kids are really tired right now, or we really need to have a brain break. We need to do something. We need to break state in the room right now. In an online classroom, this is a lot harder to see, but its importance is not diminished. It is so important in the online classroom, in this online teaching environment, that we manage the flow and transitions within our lessons, that we manage how are students going to go from this to this? How are students going to maintain their focus and maintain their energy in an online classroom? How long have you been talking for? When was the last time you asked for a response from your students? All of these things that perhaps come more naturally to us when we're in a physical classroom are much harder to manage in the online classroom. However, they're not impossible. One of the most helpful things we can do when we're preparing our online lessons is to actually think about these transitions. Hack 1 was all about starting strong, right? And if you haven't watched that, you need to go back and have a look. I talked about the importance of starting strong. This is the first transition point in your lesson. How are you going to go from the beginning of your lesson into the next part of it? What are you going to do in the online space? Are you going to ask a question? Are you going to use the online features of the platform that you're delivering on? For example, in GoToWebinar and Zoom and other platforms, there's many features. One of the great ones I use all the time is the poll feature, P-O-L-L, taking a poll of your students. And this can be something that's deeply educational, like asking them about their current knowledge, finding out their previous knowledge so you can position the learning. This could be used in a quiz form, but also this can be used just to connect and have a bit of fun with your students. Get them to poll their favorite ice cream or their favorite kind of dog or whatever it is. Pick something that's true to you and that makes sense to you. But using these digital features is a great way to manage the flow of your classroom. You've got to remember that on the other side of the camera is your student, and your student's sitting there and they're going to experience moments when they're feeling tired. They're going to experience distractions. They're going to feel like they can't understand what's required of them, or it's too easy or it's too hard. All of these things are happening behind the computer that your student is using. And as an excellent online teacher, you've not only got to anticipate that, where in the lesson could this go off track? Where in the lesson might my students lose focus? Where in the lesson might I lose focus as a teacher? And if you're anything like me, that happens all the time because I'm creative and I'm thinking of ideas and I'll go over there and I'll do this and I'll do that. In the online classroom, it's not that you can't be creative, it's that you've got to be a little bit more intentional. How are you going to manage the transition of your students from one part of the lesson to the other? When you are sending them off to do some work, what are you going to say? How are you going to say it? What kind of energy are you going to have when it comes to that? You see, managing the transitions of your students is so important because this is an online space. You may be able to see them, you may be able to see how much engagement they've got, and you will learn to use the digital platform that you're operating on right now. And what you'll notice is as you do this more and more, you'll get better at anticipating where your students will need a brain break, where you're going to need to just throw something in there to almost snap them out of it or snap them into it. It can be used in both ways. And like I said, there's lots of ways to do this, using the poll feature, putting out a discussion question. If you can split them into groups on your digital platform, that is a fantastic tool that you can use. You can use Kahoots. If you're not sure what a Kahoot is, just Google it, Kahoot. Fantastic online platform. You can have students create their own Kahoots or their own general knowledge quizzes or multiple choice quizzes or any of that kind of thing. How are you going to keep your students engaged? And what are you going to do in those in-between times? You know, think of it like, I said you weren't on show, but go with me with the analogy for a moment, right? Think of it like a stage show. They are managing scene changes. They're managing props. They're managing people coming on and off the stage. And all the time while those internal things are happening, which is kind of like your lesson, what they also have to manage is the experience of the audience, which is like your students. So as a stage manager, you're managing the things on stage so that the show can go on. And you're managing the experiences and the learnings of the audience. It's exactly the same as a teacher. You're like a stage manager. You're managing the content and the learning and the education that has to occur in your lesson. And at the same time, you're not only managing what's going on for your audience, the students, but you're actually anticipating where it could go off track. Where in this lesson that you are about to deliver, just ask yourself the question, where could this go off track? Another great question to ask is, where might my students lose focus? Another great question to ask is, where could this be a little bit uninteresting, a little bit boring? Not that you're a boring teacher, but is there a dry part of your lesson where you're just going to have to kind of trudge through it? Where could this lesson be really, really exciting? Where might this lesson have all of my students crazily excited, and I'm going to need to manage the transition from that excited moment into the next part of the lesson? These are all questions that we're asking when it comes to getting the flow right. You know, managing the flow of your lesson is crucial to great online teaching, just as it is in the physical classroom. How are you going to start? How are you going to take your students on a journey, like a great conversation? Take them on this journey where you're managing their state, managing their energy levels, managing their engagement and their focus. How are you going to take them on that journey elegantly and beautifully and calmly? That's our goal, right? To do this calmly so that the flow of the lesson is really, really nice. Managing these transitions is so important to continue to become a great online teacher. Hack 5, get the flow right.